did a very good job at like having the atmosphere like one like because it's also in Antarctica and very secluded. Like there was no like really outside connections to like outside of like the main groups of people. It was very good at trying to not be obvious of who the
thing was. Yeah.
Except maybe a little bit with I don't remember his actual the one who's arguably the main character, like
Kurt Russell's McCready.
Yeah.
Yes.
There was definitely times where I didn't think it was him, but there was a lot of times. It did mostly do a good job at that. It did well with everybody else. I don't see anything wrong with that. That's one specific aspect of it.
I guess the stream was like delayed, so it really started in the middle of 100
That's fine.
Oh.
So yeah, okay, as Hunter was explaining to us before the stream started, he was letting us know about the movie we watched this week, which was John Carpenter's The Thing. It is a horror classic, and it is about a group of scientists in the Antarctic winter trying to survive against an alien thing. Hunter, do you want to give a brief synopsis of what you were saying to us just now?
Sure. The whole time, and it did a good job of making you question like who has been infected by this thing.
That's the word of the day. And so I forgot to mention we are joined by Christian this week. There he is. Hey, there's our buddy. So we're joined by Christian this week. This is your first time on the podcast, right? No, his fifth time.
It's been a while. I was here for critically acclaimed episode Spider-Verse.
Did you critically acclaimed episode? What?
Yeah, pretty much the most popular episode that you guys had was because I was here and my mic levels were so low. You couldn't hear me at all, so it wasn't because of me.
Now that Christian's been talking, our viewer count was at 50, 60 people now. Charm. But yeah, so Christian's joining us, recurring guest, Christian. And what did you think? You, before the movie, gave us the impression that you were like The Thing's #1 fan.
Okay, so I know a bit about The Thing here and there from, I originally, the first thing I was ever introduced to from The Thing was my dad rented the game. Which we'll get into that later, because I had implied that we were talking about, the story and implications of what we think about the ending. That game's canonical. It's a sequel. And
Love it. Okay.
Yeah, so we'll get into that.
Yeah, we'll talk briefly about that. That's fun.
John Carpenter's The Thing, this movie by itself, I think is as close as you can get to, with the time period and with everything involved, a perfect movie. I think that it's encapsulated in this like little bubble that makes horror like stand out in a way that like has just fallen off. Like I could go back and watch so many different horror movies. There's plenty of different ways that have innovated. I'm not saying all horror is bad. I'm not even a huge fan of horror in general. But the idea that like this movie is a slow burn, and it's the only movie that I've seen in this genre that is a slow burn intentionally, and then every one of those seconds that's ticking away adds to this tension, and not in like a fart sniffy way. Like it's a little tick or a little one thing or a little visual cue of somebody acting slightly not right. None of that really matters, because you really just, it's a whodunit with all the way up to the ending where you're not guessing who's who. When it's down to the last two survivors, the entire time, even when credits hit, you're like, okay, well, who's who, right? It's the Inception ending. It's the with the top stops spinning. It's that kind of vibe, and it's satisfying in the way that it's not. I think The Thing is like also the insane amount of practical effects.
Oh yeah,
that you just don't.
Yeah,
only practical effects.
Exclusively practical effects. The only time I think that they don't use direct puppets for shots or just location for shots.
Yeah,
and even that is like looks great. 82, I think this movie came out, and it still looks fantastic. Just the visuals, the aesthetic of the entire movie. I'm also going to say I'm biased. I don't know why. abusive
No,
visuals.
And yeah, no, absolutely. And I was actually thinking that as we're watching, color doesn't really allow for the full depth of color. But I feel like for this movie, being lit primarily by flares with a pretty bad image of us watching it, added to that tension because we had just as hard time of seeing what was happening as they were in
You see a lot of
the shot.
blemishes. Yep.
Yeah.
No, it adds a lot. It also adds to that coloration is like the fact that they're using flares. Like I'm a sucker for that aesthetic, but also that in moments it's pushing this sort of like, you know, it's trying to push you in a way of like feeling one way or another about certain characters and whether they're affecting back from outside when they cut his line, right? And you realize after that, if you think back to the two characters, it was the cook and it was McCready, right? Once they do the test later on, maybe 20 minutes go by, but it's so tense, you're like, well, it's got to be one of them. One's tricking the other. You realize neither of them are.
Neither. Yep.
It's literally just paranoia.
It was completeness direct. Yep.
He's like,
he's very pale.
White. Yeah. He looks like shit. He's threatening to blow everybody up. He's holding this flare, and like, he just looks terrible. He looks terrible. But he's like, no, I'm the good guy. You're all the crazy ones, right? And it's just perpetuating this thing that starts all the way back with, the startings of Blair, which goes all the way back before then to them talking about the Norwegians in the beginning in general, speaking about how cabin fever, maybe they went crazy. It's like they technically did, but that's not what, it just wasn't for no reason.
Right. They mentioned the Norwegian prior.
Right.
And so, no, not that kind of crazy.
But then if you pay attention to that small, like I said, every single dialogue, every little thing, comes back to it. Oh. No. All these different moments come back in a way. They say, 8 days. That's not enough time, right? With the amount of, at one point they say something about 48 hours. This takes place over 2 days.
Yeah.
That's it. 2 days, and their entire camp, which is bigger, it's more well armed, it's prepped, gone. It's completely gone. And right back to where they started. But of like movies, thrillers, horrors, whatever, that give you like the character's persona, and then you got to know that right off the bat because then we're going to start killing them and this and that.
Right.
And this movie does such a great job because those have nothing to do with anything. What you really need to know is how different people and these different characters are going to deal with paranoia, right? Yeah. So one of the characters, starts threatening everybody else. The leader of the dog kennels, right? The hunting dogs or whatever, or the sleigh dogs. He's like trying to trick people. He's like, turns out he's not even a thing, but he's trying to get in bed with like McCready, and he's sneaking up on like all these different characters. It doesn't really matter what personalities they have because as soon as that goes away, whatever problem, they don't even understand the problem. They're trying to figure out what's going on
and even
how to deal with it.
With their reactions to what's happening.
Exactly.
I guess you can argue that either add to the situation. It's just like you still just don't know who it could potentially be based off like. Sometimes like, that's why they're going to do this. But like in this case, you still just don't know who it could possibly be.
Yeah, there's a lot of moments where like, people act like this, why do you do this? And then I've heard people say that like McCready feels like a, like default main character, so at no point could he be the thing or whatever. And it's like, the reason McCready kind of takes charge, in my opinion, because none of these characters, we don't know any of their real backstories. We don't even know why they're there. They're researchers, right? Which is like, plenty of researchers are in Antarctica. There's snow and penguins.
They also do all feel like that they're like, I think we get mentioned like once that two of them.
I knew in 15 years or whatever. They burned the first guy who's shown as a thing as he's like,
what's his name?
Halfway caught. Yeah, right? I think so. Yeah. He's like caught in the middle of trying to,
guess like turn
take him over or whatever.
Right. After they torch him too.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's just so in denial that he could have been somebody that he didn't expect him to be, even though he had just seen him going.
Which I love that audio too.
Oh,
the scream is so
one of the best. It's one of the best.
The reason that McCready sticks out to me as like why he would take over is this has a purpose, And the only moment I ever thought of that might not have a purpose is just to kind of set the tone of McCready. But then that you realize, like, oh, setting the tone of McCready is why he becomes this leader. He opens up, he loses in chess and destroys the computer.
Right, yeah.
Just
And he's
before
just
his life.
Yeah.
He's sick of his horse shit. All these researchers, they're fancy schmancy researchers, they're doing whatever they're doing. I'm just a pilot. I've got my thing. I'm up here, whatever. He feels secluded the whole movie, right? His bunk is completely separate from everybody else. He
has
lives
his
in a little
shack.
tower. He lives in this shack, this little, like watchtower. Even it literally coming down to, the head, of the operation or whatever. He's got his pistol. When that tense moment breaks down with him and Windows, and he doesn't even go to McCready first. He literally goes to somebody else. He's like, I'm not going to.
Yeah, McCready doesn't even at that moment he does not take the lead.
No,
until somebody else.
Until Childs tries to take it,
and everyone's like, no.
The only moment where he steps up and goes against anybody else is when Childs goes to take the gun. And rivalry, right?
And then even when that no one even really agrees with McCree taking it, but no one disagrees. They're still just in the
they have
I
no
guess
choice.
Someone has to be.
Somebody has to do it. It's going to be grizzled helicopter.
And even
McCready.
when I mentioned there's a few times where it feels he's not going to be even in my mind. I guess to me that makes it even better. There's a part of my brain that kind of still wants to argue. It's just no, it could still just definitely be him.
Yeah.
There's no reason
until
why
they do that blood
him.
test.
Right.
Literally. Until the dog walks in on the silhouette. Who's the silhouette? Right?
Yeah.
Well, you assume it's not McCready because he's probably somewhere else, but who is it? And you still don't exactly know, but it's sort of implied that it's the headphones guy. I'm so bad at the names, even though I love this movie. I forget the name so easily.
The guy who was trying to communicate with
No.
The one who just has the Walkman on him.
The one who, and I love the scene too, where everyone's in denial again about bringing out their little bits of backstory and who they are as a character without it really mattering. Is they're like, oh, aliens, that's horseshit, because they discover that opening scene of the spaceship flying over was 100,000 years ago. Something crazy. It can't be. There's no way. And he's like, no, absolutely. They gave Aztecs all they knew. He's like a conspiracy. Palmer is assumed to probably be it, or maybe the guy whose stomach opens up. Right? It could be anybody who was one of those original things. You just don't know exactly. But those moments play such integral parts later on. Just because, literally until they start pulling out the blood tests, who knows? You can't know, right? Anybody's on the table. And I think that's what's really, really interesting. You even have that really cold moment where he shoots the guy and, they're testing. He tests both the corpses, which the one he didn't kill, the other one he does. Both those corpses come up human.
Right.
And Giles has that, again, rival moment where he's pushing back
against you're a murderer.
So that makes you a murderer.
Yeah.
Doesn't blink twice. He, just clocks
it's
that.
Yep.
Tests hit. I love that they are the two final people.
Mm-hmm.
They have that on again, off again, frenemies bullshit.
Right.
The instant that he checks Giles and he's good, he's like, cool. And such a fantastically done scene. Them. This edit of each person who is. And then they're all getting stressed out and pissed off.
Especially since Childs is on that couch when one of them starts to turn into what it is. Literally, there's I think a single person that's between them.
Which is Palmer, I believe.
Palmer's on the end, and he's the one turning.
The in between. He was in between Childs and the captain or whatever. I don't know.
Oh, that's who it was. It was Gary, I think.
Yeah, it was the perfect timing too for that shot. That it's there's very few jump scares in this movie. And one of the few is they're obviously putting onus on him because he had the key. How did where did he give the key to this whole moment where they cut the blood because that was their original plan. Out with another plan that works, right? But everyone's talking shit because it's not working. He's not getting any samples. And then when Gary's like, oh, you're a fucking idiot. This is gonna work. He's like, I'm saving you for last because this is for sure.
Yeah, and then
hits, and then boom,
goes for
jumps.
Palmer,
he starts transforming right
that
away.
Was to me. I actually jumped at it. I was like, oh my,
the entire movie.
Yeah,
the rest of it was just.
There's a couple other moments that are they kind of pop at you or whatever, but this entire movie. Why I love it so much is what I value in a horror movie over all else is building tension
Yep.
or suspense, believable suspense,
Yeah.
right? If it's like, oh, it's a possession, and it's I'm fucked. This there's a real thing they can do. They can burn the bodies.
Right.
They could win, but their paranoia gets to them.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest weapon that this super intelligent being, and you can tell it's incredibly intelligent. It's not just that it's sapping human in the basement, right?
Even like when it starts to like the first person that they burn, like it's not too long of a time between like when we just saw it like potentially interacting with the person,
Right.
and it's already almost like turned into an exact
like
replica.
full.
Like the
Yeah.
only thing that was different is I think the hand
The
was still
hands,
like
yeah, it was
extended
still-
out.
yeah. Well, that was going back briefly to like the lack of jump scares. This creature, they establish this very on, but they show us before the human characters know it. As the husky, it walks in to the enclosure with the other dogs, sits there. You know that scene's always tough to watch because it's dogs panicking.
Right.
But
I think that scene's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's
It
it.
is.
because you know that dog is bad.
Yeah, it's fantastic because I love that it doesn't initially go off on them. If I remember correctly, it doesn't just jump on them right away.
No,
It's
no.
when the
No.
dogs start barking.
Yeah,
Because they all start barking.
It starts to like get up and like
Yeah.
I think it
Kind of, like,
starts
tenses,
to breathe
and
like
you got a dog,
but like
right?
until it actually like makes like an audible noise,
Right.
it's like that's not
so
another dog.
we watched this with closed caption. I think his name was Baller, maybe not Bells something. It was with a B, I
Something
think.
like
But as soon as the caretaker left, the thing as the dog went, and that's exactly the caption said: inhaling, exhaling,
Yeah, like a
and all the dogs. It's that
Well, like
cue.
you mentioned also like because you were just mentioning about the caption thing. Like there was at one point, I forget like McLeod, whatever.
McCready?
Yeah, McCready. Sorry, I forget.
No,
it's
all good.
When he throws the grenade, like when he had
Yes.
like outside, like you even mentioned like you didn't like that's not an easy thing to know that you
Right.
even like had that.
Yeah.
in.
Well, but then into that grenade, if you don't have closed captions on, you don't catch it, whatever. It is a very funny reel because then he in the next scene very obviously has like a bandolier.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And for the rest of the movie, they are geared to the
Yeah,
fucking
yeah.
T. They are like they have grenades, they have Molotovs, they're burning the facility.
Mhm.
Like him and the two others, they really get down to it. The only moment, if I could pick, like nitpick, like really, I'm really digging, is that I understand that in the beginning they're very split understanding of what is happening sets in, and that is why I can fully believe that these things are acting differently to try to get things done. The only moment is right at the end as they're burning things and they're setting up the TNT in the basement. Again, the three of them know that they're not the thing.
Right.
They split up. Not that big a deal because they're sort of in this system where they're in a row.
Right.
It's
Mhm.
McCready, it's the cook, and then it's the I believe the doc. And they're in this row, so it's like, okay, if any one thing happens, they would notice, right?
Mhm.
But they're not ready for the fact that he starts assimilating to his mouth.
Yeah, catches immediately.
Right? So that one I get.
Yeah.
Rather than flamethrower, we're blowing this
It-
place up.
it
He goes,
just-
"Whoa." That second
Yeah.
one is the only time where I'm like,
The thing is, throughout the entire movie, we saw that Knowles, the cook, not today, turn the music down. He's like, okay, we'll do.
Yeah.
And then
Keeps
even
doing
like
whatever he's doing.
pretends
Yeah.
to just
And
do
it's like-
it.
And
So
that
he
could be
just,
part of it.
you
But
know,
the idea that like
I think it's
Knowles,
he's young. I think that's
yeah.
kind of what it is.
maybe, but the idea is that like Knowles also got so paranoid that he cut McCready. Like, hey, not call out, make a single noise. Even if
Mhm.
he was like, "Hey, dog, is that you?" To tee off McCready. And I get
Right.
it was a tense moment. It does make for a good shot because
It
you
does.
get that
Oh,
hallway
fantastic.
shot.
Yeah.
Of McCready, and he pre-lights the dynamite because he's like,
Yeah.
"No, it's here, right?"
Mhm.
With again, what was his name? The guy that was in the shack. Blair. Yeah.
Yeah, Blair. Yep.
Blair, the doc, and then the cook at the beginning.
Yep.
Right.
Oh, yeah, 'cause
So,
they're, like
Yeah,
plot is-
because
Yep.
you go over and they go to check on Blair, which again one of the best shots one of my favorite shots in cinema is they open. It's such dark comedy. They open the little tab
Mhm.
to ask him like, "Hey, have you seen what's his name? He ran out. I don't remember who the first person who runs out. that disappears."
Fuchs.
Yes,
Is the
they're
one
like,
that-
"Oh, back in. I don't want to be out here anymore." And you get this shot of they're looking in. It's from their perspective,
Yeah.
and it's in the forefront is this noose, and
Yep.
he's just sitting eating a can of beans.
Yeah.
Just he's always happy go lucky, and it's this cut back and forth, back and forth. And I do believe that breaks the door down, gets to him, and then in secret starts doing all that.
Starts
Right.
doing the
Yeah. So it's just, again, it's so many of those moments where it's like, well, they would have a helicopter if Blair didn't freak out. They would have these different things would be useful. Speaking of the helicopter, if you guys are cool, I want to segue into some of the spin-off content for the thing.
Oh,
Can I touch upon one
Yes,
thing
absolutely.
first?
Yes.
So, do you guys know what the Norwegians are yelling? Or the Norwegian is yelling at the very beginning of the movie?
Not word for word.
Okay, so really, really funny.
Mhm.
So, that character is yelling in kind of broken English, but it says, "Get the hell away. It's not a dog. It's some sort of thing. It's imitating a dog. It isn't real. Get away, you idiots."
Yeah.
And it's like, they're like, "Oh, a dog." Be assimilated. I've come to the...
Yeah, I would have definitely
Yeah.
been like, oh, you're just a dog.
Oh, hello, friend.
Yeah, so that's very funny because that actually plays into one of the spin-off things.
Yes.
So this was 82.
Right.
That game is a canonical, I'm almost positive that none of the people that work directly on the original thing love any of the spin-offs, but they had licensing, so it's the thing,
it's
right?
fun.
The video game goes through such a crazy turn it's actually a pretty fun game. It dies off towards the end, but it's an interesting little survival horror. It's a very interesting system where you pick up buddies and then they can get infected and you got to kind of test them. It's cool. It's a nice little managing thing. It's got a lot of bugs. It doesn't play great, but it's neat for its time. That story, there's all these other people where there's this military lead guy and he's using the thing and splicing its genes with his to control it for a weapon for military use.
Very cool.
So it's a huge, ridiculous thing that in the very beginning of the movie, right? I think in the very beginning of the game, it's an interesting plot. It could have been its own thing. One of the craziest bits is that what is the thing that stays with you in this movie right on that final note is like poignant moment that sticks with you. Like, holy shit, that's so tense. You're going, I think it's this, I think it's this, maybe it's neither, maybe it's both. Mm-hmm. The game hard opens with you exploring the American camp, and Charles is froze to death. He's there.
Right.
It's him. He's dead.
Mm-hmm.
So you go, oh, maybe it's McCready. At the very end of the game just says, nope, he died and McCready got a copter. Now, copter blew up. Where the fuck did he get it? Where? They don't care. It's so funny. It's so absurd. And then that leads to, okay, that was tasteless. It was zany, but that's its own thing. In 2011, I believe, they made a remake.
Yes.
The remake is a prequel.
Right.
Which is wild. So,
Isn't it? So I haven't seen the prequel. Is it the Norwegian camp?
Yes.
It is, right?
It is a Norwegian camp. So the way that the prequel runs, and it's interesting because they start off and a lot of people, it was literally just the thing. The prequel is a prequel in disguise. This movie isn't horrendous, but only because the movie feels like a plot point to go from A to B to set up shots that were in the 82.
Right.
So someone kills one of those head things with an axe and it's sticking out of the door and it froze. That's the axe. The ice bed, they do find it, right? They find it in the ice and they bring it back because it's trying to escape.
Right.
It's just all these different moments of like, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. It's like, okay, this is fine. It's just the thing, and we know exactly how it's going to end.
Right.
Which sort of takes that flair away, that love away of like this. But one of the funny bits is that they sort of had to come up with the idea of, well, we can't just have it be the blood test again, right? Which is that it can't recreate metal.
Right,
so if you have
right.
If you have an earring, whatever.
It can't do inorganic material.
Right, which is kind of neat, except I've always been confused. How do they make the clothes?
Well, that's the thing. It's like
because they rip through the clothes
they rip through
and then recreate clothes.
That was something I was thinking too, and my assumption is that
they just burst out of the and they can't assimilate with it, but they can recreate it.
Yeah.
What is assumed in this movie, and there's nothing else saying. Okay, well then what about the metal? So it's just this very zany thing, and then it leads to these two characters have a moment. He, one of them's the thing. She catches him, blows him up, drives off into nowhere, is presumed dead, and then those two Norwegians come back from trying to get help. They see the last thing is the dog. It runs out, and then that movie ends on them chasing the dog.
Right.
In the helicopter,
Right.
shooting or whatever.
So,
I guess.
You go.
Well,
Please. Insist.
Well, since you mentioned about the clothes thing, and now I'm just kind of.
Too bad, like, well, the fur is like hair. It's whatever.
Yeah.
But it is.
You
Again,
make fur.
in this movie, I don't second guess the fact that they can
Yeah,
recreate
no,
clothes.
Right,
yeah.
It's just that they can't assimilate with
Right.
the clothes. Right.
But then the prequel provides us
The prequel
with,
goes
they
like,
can't
oh,
make that.
well,
like,
but I think specifically they say metals.
they,
It's
yeah.
like, yeah, but zippers. They're wearing
Yeah,
coats.
right.
It's 2011, so this is the era of
CGI. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all the monsters are not the best. I think there's one or two practical moments, and those stand out as being actually not bad.
Which
All those
that-
things that they spread a
very
fantastic 5-minute scene into a full 2-hour movie.
It makes it work.
It's painful to watch, knowing like, oh, that is cool, I guess. But I think they really bet on this gimmick, right? So
Right.
it's very funny to me that the thing has left this fantastic legacy of being like one of the best horror movies, one of the best movies of all time. And then the follow up is, let's make a game later, and then another 10 years after that, we'll make a movie that is fucking wild.
And did you know that this is a remake?
This is a remake?
The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, is a remake.
Oh, isn't it like a 1951?
Yep, of a film from the 50s.
Interesting.
Yep. But nobody talks about it because nobody knows about it. So this is our principal media. But yeah, no, it's as you're saying, like all these like spin-offs or these other like uses of the IP have fallen flat. And it's not to say because the IP is bad, but John Carpenter and the creative team behind the 1982 film did such a good job that it stands out as the totem of this entire series.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It is tough too, because I feel like it's such an unbreakable concept of just a whodunit.
Yeah.
But there's been millions of obviously where it really lies nowadays is in video games, right?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Plenty of examples of that.
Name all of them.
Okay. Trouble in Terrorist Town, Gmod popped off. We got Among Us. We got the Sea. We got obviously. But hypothetically, it's horrifying, but it's fun to try to figure out.
Yeah.
Right.
Werewolf. Same.
Yes.
All these types of games.
All the social deductive.
Yeah, social deduction games split from this fantastic idea. The problem is, it is a very simple idea. So I think the reason that we have
Right.
the prequel literally is copying beat for beat because they have to be like, oh, this is why this happened. It's like, I don't give a shit how the fire act's on the wall.
Yeah.
Paint me the picture and then I can
Yeah.
infer, right? The game is also another game, so it does it okay, but then the plot doesn't have any. And Childs is dead, right? It's just one of these things where I think the reason we haven't seen like a fantastic follow up of the thing is because there's not much to what do you do? Give the characters more backstory? No, you didn't want any more.
We need to know where they went to elementary school.
Exactly.
Only
Yes.
then can we deduce
We
if
need
they
a
are the Thing.
pre-prequel. Yeah,
Exactly.
The thing isn't in there. It's just
No, it's
all
just-
the people
yeah.
going to school. Yeah.
We need to know
The Thing
how
high.
long the boat ride to Antarctica was.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
I'm gonna sidetrack ever
No,
so
please,
slightly,
sidetrack
just
us.
a little. So, like we mentioned, mostly Christian, you mentioned about like everybody having like their reactions to the situation, how they're like reacting and like coping with it a little bit. Kind of brings up a little bit of what we watched last time, the digital circus thing, a little bit. I know it might just seem like I'm being.
We're
biased.
digging in. We're digging in.
And in that, like, I don't know if you know what it is. It's called The Amazing Digital Circus. Essentially, like, there's these characters that are stuck in this VR, like, type of game. They don't really know, like, what's happening, and, like, there's a ringleader that's kind of just trying to make them, like...
So Spy Kids.
Spy Kids 3.
It would be 5, I guess.
What?
There's 4 Spy Kids.
Yeah, but the third Spy Kids,
Spy Kids 3,
is
right?
the one with the game.
Sorry,
Sylvester
I thought you
Stallone.
were saying we were adding.
No.
But essentially, like, since they're all stuck in this like virtual world for like forever, they all have their different means of like coping and stuff too. So like
some of them go crazy, like Blair did.
But Kane, maybe it's good or bad. So like, I don't.
Kane is the thing.
It is fantastic. I do love, again, a little one of these moments that just sort of pops back up. It is so funny to me because there's a little bit of black comedy here and there, right?
Oh yeah.
It's fantastic. I love the scene where they're all semicircled around all the videos and intel they found. I don't remember who says it, but they go, we're not going to learn anything from this shit, right? It's 9 hours of garbage. 3 seconds later, they're like, "Is that an alien spaceship?"
Yeah, no,
it is the instant he starts talking shit, and just those little moments of like tenseness, bringing like popping these bubbles, and a little bit of levity, but not too much, not over trying.
And that is something I noticed is that there was nothing that felt like it was being punctuated by a joke, but if you peeled back what was actually happening, it's like that was really funny.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Some of the shots, some of the, and people with darker sense of humor are going to think it's funnier than they're going for. But even with the little bits that they sort of throw in there, pretty plainly, obviously, it's tough to give this movie any more praise than so many people already have. But like, it genuinely is just,
let's give it some hate.
Incredible. Yeah.
John Carpenter, go back to Halloween.
Why was that flashlight out by the helicopter? That doesn't make any sense.
Stupid.
But yeah, it's a simple concept with simple execution, and it's a realistic, believable situation in this unbelievable situation.
Right. It's realistic how they react.
I have a huge problem with media if something, doesn't matter what it is, movie, game, book, anything, has a rule set, and then they just decide to stem from that rule set.
Yeah, they think,
okay, how does that work? Oh, so it can multiply, right? So it can hypothetically breed with itself and split its own cells. Okay, fine. To what degree can they do that? Oh, well, you get a weird head crab guy with little spindly eyes, right? As he sees that,
genuinely kind of cute.
So,
to be honest, like I don't know, something about after his head pops and you just hear
a little scurry.
It's like, oh, I want him to be my friend.
Or then they all just like turn and like realize and see
that,
like, oh,
and that was kind of like funny to me.
Yeah,
is that they thought it was over, and then it was like,
it gets caught. It knows it's fucking. It gets caught.
Like it even just freezes, being like, oh,
it knows.
No,
like
again, one of those little moments, but it just executes so many of these things absolutely perfectly. The score, fantastic. The music is throughout the whole thing, and you sort of like where they're dealing with the horror aspect is dealt with by talking about it because they're trying to figure it out, right? But you kind of forget how many moments in between talking there are that are just cold, sort of bone chilling. Look at this dead Antarctic. Look at this, outshot of them hit someone moving from one place to another. And I think the musical score perfectly encapsulates that sort of feeling of like intrigue, but also like creepiness.
That is something that I noted was that they used a lot of those like synths. It wasn't very like typical instruments. It was very like like the synthetic feel made me feel okay. So they are in an alien. They're not in an alien place, but they're in a very isolated alien environment, and synths at the time were still a relatively new form of music, and so compared to something like a guitar or like an orchestra, your ear hears that and it doesn't sound as natural because it's not a physical thing creating that noise. It is something unreal making that noise.
Well, and I did notice too that a lot of times when the things would have either music pairing or they would make noise themselves, it was very much a lot of the times if they got caught or if it was like very much them and not them trying to hide or something. There were times where like the dog monster would sort of synthy, weird, unnatural. It's not close to any sort of thing. It's just this like cry out, right?
Yeah.
Anytime that they're sort of coming in on like, oh, what's that? Or maybe this is a thing, they're using those synths. And then any part where he's again, oh my goodness, what's his name? The one that was locked out.
Blair.
Blair. I he won't say Dare.
Let's call him Dare. Dr. Dare.
So Dr. Dare.
Yeah.
No, so Blair is sort of looking up this research, and it's slightly vague. I had always assumed that it was the Norwegian. Just a calculation.
I think it was definitely
matter.
him working it
I think,
out.
yeah, I think
And
it was
that's
maybe
why
him
he
like
cracks.
Yeah, because he's like cracking.
I realize,
right?
Like,
but as it's playing this sort of like slow, goofy. We had said like, oh, it looks like Asteroid, right? It looks like an old video game of them. Oh, I love the text that pops up. They highlight the cell dog.
Yeah,
and then it like touches it.
Dog
It's like foreign cell, imitation dog, right?
Yeah,
interwoven with that unique track of the song, and it's sort of like unnerving. It's almost annoying. And then after the 30, 45 seconds of like playing this goofy little graphic, it cuts out and you realize that Blair's holding a stopwatch.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that was real. That's not a part of the sport.
It's him
and perfectly
seeing how quickly
they're like sync cuts out, and it's him, right? And it's just that foresight to put that in there to like elevate that scene. Because if there's no audio, and you're just watching it, it's a pretty boring.
If there's the shot.
But it's slowly ramping up, and then as the one cell's going past, it reaches out and snags a cell at the very end. You're like, oh, it's not just coming in contact; it's hunting these things as soon as it can. Right?
Yeah, like first, like
makes him go crazy is 75% chance it's one of us, if not more.
Yeah,
and if this gets out, I think it's 27,000 hours before all of humanity's gone.
Which Sam, do the math real quick. How many days is that?
Like 4.
So I was not a math major, but I don't think that's right. Yeah. They should have broken it down because I'm watching it and I'm a big
that's
dummy.
Like about like close to 4 years.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not so bad.
No, that's what's so funny about it too. I love that they say 27,000 hours. Right. Anytime you go like, oh, we're fucked in this much time, right? You always think of like a small amount of time, but yeah, 27,000 hours is really long. The thing, it's clever, it's meticulous. It's not just going to go on a rampage and get a whole town.
Right.
It would. Over 4 years, it would get everybody little by little by little by little.
I don't think his calculations accounted for that because at that point, Blair, and who knows if he ever figured out how quickly it actually operates. Right. Because he knew that it assimilates and it will completely assimilate.
But I think and sorry to cut you off, I think what really elevates how quickly that acts is their paranoia.
Yeah.
I think that the monster in this, obviously it's a, pretty plain metaphor that it's like the biggest threat that they're dealing with when this thing jumps at you and gets you, they learn almost immediately they can burn.
Yeah.
They have the tools.
Yeah.
They're at a facility where they have flamethrowers for burning ice. They have kerosene all over the place for their big diesel trucks. They have a shitload of fuel. Yeah. In theory, they just go outside, huddle up, and burn anything that walks out. Right? Yeah. Their paranoia is what destroys them. Nothing. Yeah. Right? I think the thing gets a good chunk of them. Yeah, it gets most of them, but it gets them not just from being like brute forcey.
Yeah, it's not like it's busting through walls.
They get windows and they get the doc.
Yes.
They chomp Doc's arms when he realizes that he's going to find out.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because he's about to test. What I've always loved about that scene too, again, we talked about how great it is he's about to test. And then, hits it, boom, oh, it's one of him. It's that misdirection. He doesn't make a single move to stop him. He doesn't transform before he's going to find out. Mm-hmm. It's only the instant that he would, because the thing is clever. It's like, okay, well, they haven't found out for sure yet.
They don't know yet.
Maybe someone's going to step in, maybe whatever. And
the thing doesn't even know itself that it will work.
Like, it is, like, practically instantaneous as soon as...
Where he starts to,
So, I did feel bad for Windows.
Yeah, I felt bad for a lot of characters.
Windows, he just seemed like he was trying.
Boy, he's too terrified.
But it just definitely knows, like, oh, okay, like, even if it does, like, reveal itself, like, a little bit, it knows, like, oh, another one of these characters is me. Right. So, like, I can kind of go a little bit more crazy doing this.
What I do wonder... And we never get to see this because it doesn't make for interesting cinema problem. And then went to a human and perfectly did it without being caught. Do we think it would have stayed as that one human, or do we think it would have continued to assimilate? Because to me, Blair assumed that it was seeking to dominate the world, assimilate the world, but and then we see Thing Blair is building the ship.
Right.
So to me, it seems like the Thing wants to GTFO and get off Earth, whereas they all think the Thing is coming to kill everybody.
So it's tough because McCready says that line where he sort of has everybody gathered and he's talking to the group saying like, you obviously haven't jumped me.
Mm.
You know, which means it has enemies. And
Right.
that line of being like, it's on the run, it's going to kill people until it doesn't have enemies, so it can be fine. The idea of that is sort of intriguing. Of like, oh, did we poke the bear, right? What happened at the Norwegian camp? The unfortunate part is that there's a prequel where it jumps out and starts killing people,
Yeah,
right? So it's like
it right out.
that's not this movie, right?
No.
So it could be that, yeah, maybe it just had its back to the wall. It really happens to like just be okay. What happened in the Norwegian camp? Right? Did they fuck up? Did they whatever? But it also could be the idea that it has a survival instinct to like, okay, well, there's no chance of us being destroyed if it will freeze. It's been proven that it won't die in the cold. It's like a frog, right? It freezes, but it will freeze.
Not all frogs. Not all frogs. So don't freeze your frogs,
Yeah, don't
kids.
freeze frogs. Just some of those frozen frogs.
Yeah, wood frogs, okay. Other frogs...
But I think the reason it builds a spaceship isn't to go to space because it's using helicopter parts. I think it's because it's what it knows.
Have you ever tried to go to space with a helicopter?
It's true.
I haven't, but you know.
I do think it's interesting because it's like, well, it's trying to get out of here. I think it's just trying to get out of the cold.
That's
it's trying to get somewhere
That's
else,
fair.
right?
Yeah.
So of course it's going to start building a UFO. It knows how it works. It knows how it
Right. It
it's
knows how to
smart,
operate it.
but it only knows its own tech.
Like it sees a helicopter and it doesn't understand.
Is that Blair goes out and he destroys it in theory before the Thing could have. But the Thing was a dog creature that transformed into. It can kind of transform into whatever. It could have snagged somebody, got to the chopper, and then flew the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
But it doesn't know how a chopper works.
Right.
So it would have had to
We
assimilate with somebody.
We think.
So all these things. So yeah, I don't know. I think really it probably is hive mind mentality. In my opinion, I believe that it probably would have gone and then
And just
affected the whole world.
Finish the world, yeah.
But I don't think it would have been hunting people. It's just, oh, I come in contact with a potential threat.
Right.
Well, it's here. It's just reproduce, right? So I think that's kind of part of it. Talking probably kerosene, and then you get that smile from McCready.
And in that same moment, there is also that similar synth sound.
Yeah. There are little hints and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, ooh, interesting. It's very funny. Because obviously, putting the game aside.
No, the game is the only canon material.
Right, which is technically canon. Have you heard about the Dean Cully, something like that?
No.
The theory. Okay, so there is he had a theory because John Carpenter didn't tell anybody who it was.
Right.
He knows, but he didn't tell anybody.
Yeah, he refuses.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's gone on her eyes. You can kind of gleam it. It was hard to see on here.
Mm-hmm.
You can gleam a light in their eyes. He's like, that same gleam that you would see in the Thing if we knew it was a Thing. It was a similar gleam that happened in the child's eyes. Even though they're in a dark corner and their eyes are lighting up because there's a fucking flare. Like there's fire everywhere. But he has this like idea, and a bunch of people latched onto it. They thought like, ooh, that's a good theory. I think it was on like comicbooks.com. He got interviewed, and they were like, "Oh, have you heard about this theory?" And John Carpenter just said, "He knows nothing." He's like, that is stupid.
That's so funny.
It's not correct. I know who it is. And they go, "Can you tell us?" And he says, "I cannot tell you." And that's it. That's just his tell. So the idea that it's like, oh, it's probably him because this. He was like, he has his head canon for who it is.
Right.
He didn't put any hints for who it is.
Yeah.
But because the movie has been so good and so tense this entire time, you innately go, I think it's this or this. Everybody does.
Well, I think regardless of if I don't think the question really is if it's McCready or Childs, purely because I think it's a Childs or not. You don't.
Fair.
Yeah.
Very much fair.
And he was alone. It's not like he was trying to pretend to be,
Yeah. No, it is. Well, but then there's a theory of like, well, but you don't see him once he's coming back upstairs. Maybe it gets and whatever.
The explosion blew him out. Come on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And it's trying to salvage things to get out. He starts drinking booze. Right. Right?
Yeah.
It's a very
Yep.
McCready thing to do. You never see the thing like partaking in its own. It's very much, if it's with people, it's trying to trick them. If it's not with people, it has a mission.
Yeah.
McCready's not with people, and he starts getting wasted.
It's not that. I have my head can't. The thing is, like, he wasn't originally the person who was signed on the contract to do this.
Mhm.
It was the guy who made the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Right.
I just that he wasn't even part of the contract yet. But then like Carpenter's like, no.
He's like, let me show you what this
This is what.
And he did a fantastic job. The movie's great, but it is funny. In my personal opinion, I do think it is. I think it's the idea that they got it right,
But the paranoia is still
but it's there, and it is like I said earlier. I think it's perfect that it is Giles because they have that rivalry.
Yeah.
Not only are they paranoid to shit, but they have that sort of, frenemies vibe of like, is it you? Is it you?
Mm-hmm.
They could probably figure it out. They could cut their fingers right there. They have fire holders staring each other down.
And they're both like very.
And then it's also-
of
Right.
Yeah.
too,
They also
so-
sort of understand what's the point.
Yeah.
They're gone. They're fucked. They're not getting anywhere. And then the game goes, psych, McCready's the best. He found a chopper. It was under the ground. He picked our shit up. He
Yeah.
goes and grabs the leader, the protagonist of the game. What's up? Like,
Yeah.
Charles is a bitch. He died as fuck. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
It's
But,
chilly.
yeah. Yeah, Charles is chilly. But yeah, I think that setting of putting that tension in the viewer, like slow. I don't trust that guy. I don't trust that guy. Right. And then sometimes it's some of the people that just didn't talk at all. The guy who opens his stomach and he fakes, dying or whatever. He's able to. The thing is able to stop its organs from working to trick people, right? Which is a super interesting.
Very cool.
concept.
Yeah.
Very cool.
He literally just barely talks at all in the movie, and then gets shoved a little, goes huh, and fake dies.
Immediately
bites his
preceding
arms
that
off.
too. I think he hadn't been to realize he was being assimilated.
Right.
Because when he's looking outside, he goes, "Oh,"
Right.
and it's almost
Yes,
as
yes.
if like something's wrong with that guy.
Yeah.
But I don't think he knows something's wrong with him.
Which-
Yeah.
That is one thing that was, I don't know how I feel about it, whether it good or bad. I truly just don't know how to feel about it. But what kind of a canon video game leads a little bit of credence to is there is a character
So
in
funny.
that, and it's pretty interesting. Your main character finds another guy who, but as you come back to him, he tells you that he knows that he's infected, and so he's going to kill himself so that he doesn't turn into a thing. And that was very interesting to me because I was like, wait a minute. So you can like get infected and then does it have to get to your brain? Some of the dogs start getting assimilated, but they get killed pretty quickly with acid.
Acid or getting
So
stabbed.
then, the only person that could have maybe slowly been infected, however it happened, who knows, right? Because then they also say, like, oh, maybe they can infest your food and your drink.
Yeah.
Maybe he got infested like that. I don't remember if there was a scene of him eating or anything before that. I don't know, but
I think
who knows?
When they were all just kind of like chilling, and the dog does something to Bennings. I think that's when Bennings got like actually
Right.
infected. I don't think it's the infection. I think the dog just did something, maybe like a boop, with like some sort of like thing
Right.
tendril or something.
And that's what's so great. There's no for sure answer.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just who.
Like they assume like, oh, maybe he killed himself because of like they thought.
Which character?
I honestly don't.
I think they were talking about Blair, not because they said he's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. Honestly, now I'm picturing a scene. I don't even know if it happened or else I just.
That's the
made it,
beauty of the
like-
thing.
Because what I'm picturing, like they're outside, they see like a fully burnt corpse, and like how. Why did-
yes. Fuchs. Yeah.
Yeah, Fuchs.
Maybe he was trying to burn it, or
and
yeah.
he's torched, right? So they go, okay, well, did he get got? Did the thing burn him? Did he burn himself? Did he,
Right.
And then that's literally never answered. Process for figuring out who's
Yeah.
who. So, which is also very clever because the thing is sort of in these conversations.
Yeah.
That's what's so great is they're having talks with everybody, but you don't know who the thing is. It's listening.
Yeah.
it's going to
reacting.
find out, and if it has some sort of to get somebody, so that's why it is like I very much know how this shit works, right? Which is why once they do the blood test is such a great idea that actually works. for the rest of the movie, they're like, okay, well, it's us. We're fine. Find it.
Yeah,
kill it.
They've done the tests.
And then also the thing being smart enough, I do love that it changes its plans. It isn't just a simple-minded thing. Flamethrowers and Molotov cocktails and dynamite. They're gonna kill me if they find me. I'm just gonna break their generator. They're gonna die.
It's gonna be cold,
and I'm gonna freeze. I'm fine. Someone else, right? Where the threat is no longer, oh, it's gonna kill us. The threat is, it's gonna outlive us. And that's it. We have to kill it. They go on the hunt, right? It's just a very interesting twist in the last 10, 15 minutes of the movie where whether go from here. It's a clever change.
Because if once the generator's down, it's maybe 15 minutes total left in that movie. Right, yeah. Interest them. No, because they have flamethrower. They have tools. It knows better. It has to adapt. I just like that a lot. I think that might be one of my favorite parts of the movie, is the idea that it's like, oh, we were fucked from the start. This thing is smart enough to assimilate with us. It's not just one track minded. And that's what makes it a threat. It's gonna play at our fears. They're gonna go to last to catch somebody off guard. It's very, very smart.
So even when it's the dog for a good part of when I guess the slow burn of it is being I guess this is my theory, or most people think the dog when it's the dog, it's just trying to figure out time and see let's just see how all these people are just going to react. Yes. I am the safest in this form right now because they don't know where I came from, and they just saw a person try and shoot me. First person was the problem. I am safe because they just protected me, and now I'm just going to be observing for most of this until it's really convenient, and I know, okay, this is what I'm going to do for now.
One line of dialogue where they asked regarding the dog, what was it doing? It was just hanging out. Yeah. It was watching. Which is, we see it several times, just
so many times of just the dog, staring. Just literally, it could just be the dog.
It's not trying to jump up, not asking for food. It's just perfectly calm. So we should probably wrap up pretty soon. Sam, do we have any feedback from the chat tonight?
Yes, the first comment.
Was Child's the thing?
That was the first question.
And I think we touched upon that, where it's we don't truly know. Yeah. I am in the boat of Child's is the most likely the thing, the remaining thing. But Christian brought up a lot of really good points. Yes or no, Child's the thing?
I think neither.
All right, abstain. Yes or no, Child's the thing?
I probably neither.
All right, so that means you both abstained. He's the
thing is from Brian.
Okay.
From the beginning, and he earlier that year, and people wanted friendly aliens.
I mean, okay, so
I think ever so slight, just looking up the thing, I did see when it first came out, it was not the biggest thing that it wanted to be.
With anything we've been talking about, I had a coworker, and she told me one day she's terrified of E.T. And so I said to her, the little alien. She's like, yes. I was like, not alien. She's like, no, E.T. the extraterrestrial. E.T. doll in her window, and apparently she can never sleep in that room ever again. So, what's scarier, E.T. or the Thing? I don't know.
For all of you to decide.
Alien. Yeah, no, I have a soft spot for E.T., but not because of the movie, because of the ride at Universal. So
I think the only way what we could take from this whole thing in this proper manner that sheds light on the original and does it well, and brings it through to the modern era, is if we have E.T. as the thing.
Yeah. And subverting expectations completely.
It picks off all the kids in the neighborhood.
He keeps flying down to each one and be like, take me home.
Yeah, no, every
pieces. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, that's really.
He was
funny.
assimilating with all the Reese's.
Drew Barrymore is in that, right? Was there any other commentary from the chat, or
no?
That was it.
Yeah, I think we're not gonna get another.
I think we should probably wrap
thing
up.
The thing.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. So make sure to catch us next week.
We want to do final ratings out of 5.
No.
Oh right, that makes the most sense. Well,
out of 5, maybe.
Yeah. No, it's tough. I think other than people's personal preference for the pacing, overall its execution, everything seems completely intentional, even for very few small slip-ups. as much as a movie setting out to do what it can do, I think it is a 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
It does everything it wants to do. It sets all of its own rules. It drip feeds you those rules perfectly, paced perfectly, and it has an incredible
4.5. Like, I think it might be a little bit due to like this week of movies that I've watched because I'm doing like a movie every month for the month of Halloween. And
Oh, you
stuff.
mean every day?
Yeah, like every day
yeah.
for it. This is because for some reason during the week, like I had just movies that I had no idea what I was watching for like the first 20 minutes. Like it just didn't explain anything to. It's up to like this had a good purpose for being like what's happening.
Yeah,
at the
right.
beginning, and like the other stuff that I watched just didn't do that.
Yeah, this movie.
But also, this is just really good of like having like the way that it's suspended. Like you have like the beginning rules, and you are learning with them, and like I enjoy that out of specifically this movie. I don't know if I like that whole genre, but like
this
this
movie did
is
it well.
definitely done at like the top that it can with what it has.
Right. So something funny, we keep mentioning how this movie was a bit of a slow burn or built the tension. It opened with a helicopter.
What I was going to say was, this movie, although it's slow and it has tension or whatever, and it sort of builds these characters, a lot of horror movies I feel fall prey to building these characters over an hour just to watch them die in the last 30 minutes. Norwegians show up and shoot someone in the leg in 5 minutes.
Yep.
There's an opening,
and then
they're
die
shooting
themselves.
a dog, and then it's action, and then they die, and then you have your inciting incident out of the way immediately, so that for the but it's as they are dealing with the problem instantly. The problem is right there. And you know the problem is right there. No matter what the problem is, you know it's an alien abduction.
Right.
Even when the movie came out, the marketing was like, oh, somebody's the thing, right?
Thing.
You're going to figure it out that something's wrong, right? And having to deal with that from moment one, you don't get a breather. Literally, I think the first shot is either the helicopter flying and then the dog, or the dog running and then the helicopter.
Yeah.
Moment one, here's the problem.
Yeah.
Deal with the problem.
It's like more of like mentally it implants like this is going to be a slow burn until like you're introduced to like this is the exact problem.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Oh, what just happened? Oh, it was actually at the Norwegian camp, and then it came with us because that was in the first 20 minutes, right? Whatever. But no, they were fucked from the start.
Yeah.
Nothing.
It was there. They're doing that. Yeah.
Fantastic. Super love it.
Your rating.
So I'm going to be a little controversial here and also say 5 out of 5. No, I really liked it. I love, and I mentioned this last week, I love practical effects. I am not the guy that will CGI. We also see a lot of really, really good stuff. So I feel like with this, it's such a pinnacle of practical, and we love it so much that it kind of like makes us jaded with CGI. But it's like, as you mentioned, there's a couple like other projects when the artists aren't overworked and underpaid. It's very, very good.
Yep.
So this is a testament of what can be done with some latex, some puppeteers, and the gumption to do it. But I do think we need.
This is like probably definitely when like practical.
This
like,
was when
you
practical
see, like,
was king.
When you see like CGI, like this is probably in everybody's subconscious being like, oh, it's not as good as this thing. So therefore it's like.
And everybody has just an immediate like, oh well, it looked better when it was real.
Yeah.
90% of the time, it does.
But it didn't in the beginning. That's the thing. This was right at the bell curve in going into the creation of CGI and starting to So yeah, of course they're good at it. That was top of their game, right?
That
all
was
these years of doing practical, they got about how phenomenal the fucking practicals are in this movie. It's so good. Every single scene, they're done so well. I think that people should definitely look up some like behind the scenes or documentaries based on the practical alone. The team did such an incredible job. Some of the ways they got some of those shots were very creative. But yeah, it really does stand out as like, I think this movie, out of a lot of different movies, as shocking that it's a horror movie and it's able to do this, ages perfectly.
Yeah, no,
I don't think
it
there will
ages
be a
well.
point in time where you can't watch the thing.
Because, don't get me wrong, we see the practical effects happen in this, and we can tell, like, oh yeah, it's not real. Because it has that imagery to it. But it blends so seamlessly into the world that he's saying things in this review. It's really just becoming a nuisance. But, like, some things that you watch, it's like, whether it's practical or CGI, example, I watched Labyrinth the other day, Jim Henson's Labyrinth. Love that movie.
Yeah.
But there's a small bit where I don't know why they chose it to do it this way, but there are puppeteers puppeting the try to rip Sarah's head off. But that song, Chilly Down, is shot very clearly on green screen, where no other part of the movie is. So that is the only part of the movie where I'm like, nah, this looks bad.
Yeah.
But every other part, even beautiful job of taking what they do well and actually blending it into the world and making it look believable,
For
not
sure.
so like, oh, this is separate. We can look at old atrocious.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
this is masterclass in that.
Yeah, I think the only moment that stands out.
Yeah.
But you can still tell that even though it's spliced on top of this painting, and it is editing work, that they are climbing on something. Like they do a decent enough job to be like, okay, yeah, that's not real. I can see it's not real, but it's not the age on it. It's like a fine wine. It's fantastic. There's also, can we just appreciate that it's a movie that, at least in the media, they're just being like kind of annoying or problematic.
Yeah.
It's just like everyone's just very realistic. They're like, oh, there's an alien. We got to deal with the alien.
Nobody feels like a caricature.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
it's very
all
nice.
very real.
I'm the this character.
Yes.
I'm the this character.
And it is also, because it is early 80s, and they are Americans, and this is an American-made film. And in our history, we have been very racist. And with that and paranoia, you don't could have had. It's purely, are you a human or are you not a human? And in those true moments of like fear and paranoia, it wasn't a us versus them as much as it was a human versus alien.
I don't know.
You know what I mean? 0 out of 5, xenophobic. But I think we should wrap that up.
Yeah.
It's been a very good discussion. Thank you, Christian, for coming. A lot of fun.
Yep, don't play it.
Yeah. All right, and Hunter, where can you follow us?
Where can you follow? You can follow us on whatever you're watching us right now. YouTube. There's TikTok that has the same name. There's the Insta. Not much of you use Facebook.
Everybody uses Facebook. My mom uses Facebook. I use Facebook. My grandma uses Facebook. I don't have.
If you have it, you have it, and you should follow us.
But yeah, so follow Club Audi, subscribe, ring that bell on. I don't do TikTok, but definitely like us on Instagram and on Facebook at Club Audi.